Thank you very much. Before we begin, I wanted to mention the fact that this talk is part of the Sistema Chakras Aapresid access. We created this to be able to give responses to what producers need through sustainable technologies in different production systems. This program has two different axes, which is chakras and thematic issues, so that we can work on real scenarios and trying to integrate the experience of the producer with science, the entrepreneurial vision, and institutional support. Briefly, this is how Chakras is formed. It is an R&D project, and here we have each of the actors that form it. On the one hand, we have the members, the founders, who finance it and talks about the necessities, a technical producer, which is who is carrying on this project. We have a table of specialists which have the information that we need to carry on research, and a coordination team that coordinates all of the management issues. In this case, Francisco Cosci represents the founding members of Chakras, and Ignacio Luna is part of the experts when it comes to weeds. Briefly, I will read you their bios. Francisco Cosci is an agronomist. He graduated in the University of Santiago del Estero for 5 years. He was also in charge of this project that has existed for over 10 years. He was also in development in Cortegas Agroscience, and he is now a private advisor in the southeast of Santiago del Estero. Ignacio Luna is an agronomist, a specialist, and a master. He is a researcher in INTA with extensive crops in this area, and Stefani is also a graduate of Esperanza Santa Fe University, and she has been leading this project for the past year. And one of the main issues here is weed management. Good afternoon, everyone. You can see that this is a very important weed, a very prevalent weed. Speaking as a member of Chakra Bandera, we started working in 2013, and we began generating information when it came to managing weeds in Santiago del Estero in different environments, sometimes complex ones, where the weeds began to appear. They were, of course, resistant to herbicides, and that was something that companies were called in to analyze this. So that's when I began working with them to seek solutions. What we had at the time as weeds were mostly grasses, and then through time, other species turned up, and that's where Borreria sp began as a target weed in order to eliminate it from our systems. As you can see here, Bandera is in the southeast of Santiago del Estero, and when we began as a group, we had 10 companies who decided to form this group and say, please, let's do something because these weeds are overrunning things, and we tried to get help for long-term solutions. In time, some more members joined our team. We were 10, and now we are 17. Chakra has grown, but not only in members, but it has grown when it comes to knowledge of weeds. And this is the main value. This is a very, very close-knit group. We generate information, and we generate good relationships, and that's what gives us a sense of belonging. Many times when of course, when we say where we come from this Chacra Bandera, we get to know more people. Why are we speaking about this particular weed? Because it has extended its surface from 2013 that we began to see it in Argentina's lands until 2023. You can see how it has spread in the south and east, in Entre Rios and the north of Buenos Aires, in La Pampa, as it moves and expands. So we can see that it becomes a more serious problem year on year. This weed doesn't appear often in fields, but when it does, it is a big problem because it is difficult to eliminate. We have been working. Steffi will then present, and Ignacio also will speak about results of different tests. This is our area where we work, Bandera. But you can see these three areas that are numbered with different environments. One is more productive. It has deep soil, sandy structure. Area 2 has less specifications, and Area 3 has differences because it has saline soil. In 2014, when we began to work, you can see that these are species that adapt to certain areas and therefore generally in fields that are more productive. It is a perennial plant. It has a root structure that is pretty important that allows them to keep a reserve from which they can reshoot and generate that problem where we cannot really get rid of it with herbicides. We have been working on it, and it also has a way to multiply, so that's why it's difficult to eradicate. That is the situation in some of the fields, that with the rains that we have, we don't manage to get rid of it with herbicides. Some of the tests we did in 2014 with trying to dry them out and double strike, which is one of the chemical treatments that we were more efficient, but we didn't manage to control this weed completely. And then in 2014, 2015, we began trying to get the service crops out and seeing how to combine strategies. In this case, the target weed was not Borreria. We were not studying it yet, but Steffi can delve deeper into this. We wanted to study that. That's it. Not everything is Borreria. Sometimes we have a barbecue. We are friends. So this was the last workshop that Steffi gave, and then we had a meal together.
Ignacio. ¿Con este pasa? Sí. ¿Para allá? Uy. Ya empezamos. A ver.
I'm going to give a summary of some of the aspects of this weed. And these aspects are important to take into account when you plan management. We have different species of this genus in Argentina. This is a list of species. Borreria spinosa and Borreria verticillata are the ones that we will find most commonly in agricultural areas. And specifically in our area, in the east of Santiago province and the west of Chaco province, a high percentage of the species is Borreria spinosa. Closer to Córdoba province, we find Borreria verticillata. So we will focus on Borreria spinosa mainly. This is a test or an experiment we conducted some years ago to estimate the consumption of water of this weed. We had two different treatments, one with a control group which had weed, and the other one had fallow. And we did a follow-up at 2 meters deep, and here you can see the two curves. One of the curves shows the treatment with weed, which is the light green line, and the black line is the treatment of land with fallow. If you see the difference or the gap between the two curves, it is almost 30% less water in the weed land. This is extremely important in the last seasons where we had practically no rainfall. During the summer, rainfall also takes longer to arrive. We are going to talk about the growth of these plants. Some plants come from seeds and other plants come from rhizomes. Here you have some photos of seeds, and my colleague also showed the rhizomes. The seeds are extremely small. You can look at them with a magnifying glass. It's very difficult to find them. One plant produces 90,000 seeds, and they are photoblastic positive. That is to say, they need light to germinate. There is practically no germination if there is no light, and as the temperature increases from 20 degrees to 25 degrees, the germination percentage increases. The author is from Brazil, Martin and his team, and they showed higher percentages of emergence with the real temperatures between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius. So, how can we differentiate emergence from reshoots or re-emergence? Most of the emergence is controlled in the last days of December and first days of December. There are different technical groups that have been able to observe a small percentage of germination during the fall. So how about growth and development of these plants? It's a very good, there is a very good project by Dr. Martins. They germinated Borreria seeds in a greenhouse, and when the leaves had expanded, they transplanted them to pots, and they did the tracking of the biomass of the different organs, the leaves, the branches, and the reproductive structures every 10 days. So here in this chart, you will see the evolution of the biomass, the branches, the leaves over time. And this is after the plant was placed in a pot, was transplanted. During the first 35 days, the accumulation of biomass or growth is very slow. even more so if we consider the period of germination to transplantation of 35 days. And from 35 days to 60 days, there is much more growth in terms of biomass. The flowers appear and they are very small, and there is a stabilization of biomass accumulation. After 60 days, there is an increase in biomass and reproductive structures. Two highlights. 80 days after transplantation, the highest accumulation of biomass is detected in the roots. And 110 days afterwards, those plants already have reproductive structures with viable seeds. Now we have a different case, which is the growth of plants from rhizomes. This is a plant that has grown from a rhizome. You have the main root, and this is like a building of rhizomes. As you can see in the picture, we do follow-up of this type and structure. We have been doing it for several years. After 30 days or even fewer days, depending on environmental conditions, this plant reaches their flowering stage, and 110 days afterwards, there are seeds. We don't know if they are viable, but there are seeds present. As regards the emergence dynamics, unlike the ones that grow from seeds, this is totally independent from rainfall, and it is fully dependent on temperature. In late August, early September, the reshoots start, and they remain during spring and summer, and there are some peaks of emergence. And let me show you a picture of June this year. I'm talking about the east of Santiago province and the west of Chaco, with different locations, including Bandera. This is another picture from early August 2023. So the problem increases with higher temperatures. Here you can look at this situation in a field in Las Lajitas. This is in the north, in Salta. We have conducted several experiments. We propose growing dosage of a product. This is the equivalent of 1 liter of the commercial formulation. I'm showing you the lower dosage. So we have the initial biomass in each treatment, and we have also measured biomass after 25 days. So, regardless of the dose, the weed continued to accumulate biomass. We can say there is a very slight reduction in biomass production with very high doses, but it is not significant if you compare it with the control group. We have done a search in bibliography. We found a paper by a specialist in Brazil, and they tried 2 species, the Borreria spinosa and some other species, and they have used glyphosate. And they have compared the upper leaves with the lower leaves, the root and the branches. And this has a system which is very different from the products that we normally deal with. To conclude, before we have the Q&A, we have tried many different chemicals, and we are open to any ideas. Perhaps you can contribute with some questions. Thank you. Now I will focus on when and how. When. When refers to the timing of the reshoots during winter and also in fallow situations. And as regards the how, I will be showing different ways of managing it chemically and culturally. And now let me anticipate. As Ignacio and Francisco have said, chemical management is not enough. We know that there is a limit for the progress of this weed. With the results we have had so far, we believe that the best strategy could be the combination of winter intensification and chemical handling, because we know that shade is an important factor. Now, when do we see the intensification? During August to October 2023, we evaluated the intensification on 2 lots. One had Vicia villosa and the other one had wheat. These 2 lots had been previously had soy crops, and you can see the photos. The one on the top had intensification with Vicia villosa, and the one on the bottom had intensification with wheat. Now, the reshoots are expressed in number of plants per square meter. For this area, if we look at the blue lines that represent the fallow situation for each of the intensification scenarios, we see that in August we found the first reshoots in both sides, and between 50 and 80% of the reshoots occurred since late September onwards. Now, let us look at each situation separately. For Vicia, there were no reshoots throughout the evaluated period. An important fact, Vicia did not produce 1,000 kilos of matter per hectare. It is not the same type as the Vicia we are used to, but it achieved this level of suppression. With wheat, we had a different scenario. Suppression was not total, and this is a reality, but the first reshoots started to appear in September, as late as September, reaching a peak of 6.2 plants per square meter, which was much lower than the ones found in fallow, when wheat achieved maturation, physiological maturation, and stopped producing shade. Let us look at the growth of those reshoots within these situations. What you can see here is the progress of growth month after month of weed within the Vicia crop. We have the fallow and Vicia scenarios. It reached 53 kilos of biomass in the fallow situation and 0 kilos with Vicia due to absence of reshoots. For wheat, suppression was not total. There were some reshoots or outbreaks, but they were much higher, much lower than in the fallow situation. For instance, for wheat, it produced only 8 kilos of biomass per hectare compared to the 126 kilos in the fallow situation. After seeing these results, the question we asked was, what did we learn from all of this? In the fallow scenario, the reshoots started in August. In wheat, 1 month later, in September, and in Vicia, in our case, we did not record them. When those reshoots appeared, the peaks were earlier or appeared earlier in the fallow situation. In all cases, intensifying reduced between 90 and 100% of reshoots of Borreria spinosa. Based on what Ignacio and Fran have said, the dimension of this problem for our area is very clear. And we also carried out some trials with chemical management. Here we did some chemical management testing. These are the chemical management structures or models used by the producers. We had two tests. The first test is called chemical sequences, and the other one was called Pastar Gold. Let me share more information about these two studies. The chemical sequences. We had sequential applications, one in September, the second one in October, the third one in November. There were 9 treatments or sequences. The basic products were arsenal, finase, and ligate. Based on the timing of the inclusion of another component, we had one first group of sequence with arsenal, finase, and ligate in the first application. In the second application, we applied flumoxacin, and in the third application, we only applied paraquat. A second group of treatment, we also had the basis of arsenal, finase, and ligate, but the inclusion of fluoroxacin was in the initial application in September. In October, we had a second application, in November, a third application. The third group of sequence, the base was the same, arsenal, finase, and ligate, but the flumoxacin was included in the third application in November combined with paraquat, and there was a double hit in October with paraquat.
Those products were without any applying. We did an integrated analysis, and we got the fact that the most control was with the combinations or the sequences that contained arsenal in its composition, independently from the F1, F2, F3, the flumi content within the applications. This is statistically. With arsenal, at the third application, we had 40% control, but to have this, or a 25 with ligate, to the producer, that does not solve his problem. When we saw these results, and knowing other experiences that I will show briefly, we wondered what happened. Why do we have these results? And I would like to analyze the campaign with regards to rains. In September, October, November, the rains were below the historic average for the area. We had 40% less rain. As we were seeing today in other days, and it is de-stressed, these weeds, and they have an important capability to impede the entry of the products that we commonly use. We managed to delay it, but not to control it. Once this has been clarified, I want to show you this experience with different results. This was a test that was done by INTA among other treatments, they tested the same three: Ligate, Arsenal, and Finesse. These are the results. This was in 2021. No, 21 and 22, sorry. If we focus on the blue line, which is Finesse, and the green, which is Ligate, we can see that 45 days after application, it got to almost 90% control. And Arsenal, which is the yellow line, was around the 70% mark. With this, I may clarify that we must take into account the effect on a year, and we could not condition these tested treatments. Due to these conditions, is that we believe we should repeat it, maybe in fall, and a more generous campaign when it comes to rains. Okay, the second test that we carried out was using the Pastor Gold product. I must clarify that Pastor Gold is not registered in annual crops. It is used for some species within pastures. The residual condition is for sensitive crops that it may carry restrictions of 2 years depending on the dose we apply. These treatments are incorporated as an experiment. Producers in the area use it because they can see that it has an effect on Borreria. Once this is out of the way, we have different doses. The lowest one was 250 cubic centimeters per hectare, up to the highest 2 liters per hectare, comparing these treatments against Arsenal and an absolute witness without application. This was a test that was done after sequential, so we shared the aspect with regards to the particular year. For the previous testing pilot, we did an integrated analysis, and we could see that the highest dose of Pastor managed to get 45% control, low. We noticed between 45 and 60 days after applying, you can see the picture at the top, that weeds that we felt were controlled began to reshoot 45 to 60 days after application. There are 2 more experiences that we had with this product before we reach some conclusions. For example, the same doses were tested by INTA, and we could see that the treatments did not go over 60% control, similarly to our data. In the same way that in Bandera, they saw that 45 days afterwards, those plants that were delayed, that were fragile, began reshooting and regrowing. We didn't manage to delay them, but not control them once again. The third experience that we had with Pastar was in Chacra La Paloma. They also tested rising doses, starting with half a liter and getting to a maximum of 2 liters. Let us filter this a bit. If we focus on the green bars that correspond to the 43 days after application, we can see that the higher doses of 1.5 and 2 liters reached values close to 90% of control, very different to what we were seeing in Quimili and in Bandera. But what happens here? 60 days afterwards, they go to the field and they see the same. Within the fields of the highest doses, very few plants had been totally controlled, but most of them presented this situation: reshoots, plants that seemed to be dead, skeletal. They began to generate new shoots. And therefore, what can we conclude? Did it not work? Did the sequencing not work? Pastar doesn't work? The truth is we were not able to control it, but we were able to delay it, as I said. And that is the strength of these type of treatments with Pastar. Beyond its restrictions, we did manage to go in 45 days to 60 at least for Borrelia, and a plot that was either free of it or with a delayed growth. And then, after we assessed all of these rising doses of Pastar and to get to know other experiences in the area, what did we learn from all that work? In the first instance, we cannot do away with any residual treatment because the condition of humidity is what may have generated those results and those differences in the percentages of control of the different experiences. Pastar had a high response to rising doses. In no case did we manage to get to a field free of Borreria by the summer season. So the best strategy would be a combination of a chemical management with intensification. And this is what I mentioned at the beginning. The chemical management by itself is not enough. This is something Fran and Ignacio have also mentioned. Let us remember that in our tests, we managed to compact a maximum control of 45% with 2 liters per hectare. And with a VISIA of less than 2 kilos of dry mattress, we managed to bring reshoots to 0. We consider the best strategy to be a combination of technologies and inputs. And when it comes to the intensification, we believe that we can give it a different level because we may want to try intercrops and fall crops, and also in the spring, as long as the campaign allows for it. Without further ado, this is what we had to share. Thank you.
Buenísimo.
Great, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. We are now in the Q&A session. If you have any queries, please ask for a microphone. Are there any queries? Sorry, no microphone. No microphone, sorry. The restrictions when it comes to Pastor Gold with rains, dose, times, whether it's soy, when you talk about, for example, sunflower, whoever wants to answer, I would give the microphone to Daniel Fade, who is right in front of you, but come on, Daniel, you can answer this. Nonetheless, sorry, without a microphone. Before further ado, may I clarify that we don't recommend and we don't promote the use of off-label use because the biological efficacy towards Borreria, verticillata spinosa, with this salicylic, which is a mixture of 3 molecules, is something that we've always known. But as you've said, it is a product that has an exclusive use within different pastures. And without going into detail, but due to the physico-chemical properties of one of the molecules that constitutes the triple mix, it is truly risky to put it within an agricultural scheme. So if you see on the label, the restrictions are, as you've said, over 2 years in some cases. There is some control, and as you've said, and you showed,
siempre hay rebrote. Sí, se entusiasma.
It's not solid. The producer is very optimistic, though, because this product of 3 molecules is the one that has the greatest efficacy against this weed. From Cortera, as I said, we're not going to register that for agriculture, that product. We tried when it comes to rotation to doses, and we don't think it goes within a sustainable scheme. Because if you apply it 1 year, beyond what you must wait to be able to sow soy, for example, it doesn't make sense as a strategy to be sustainable over time. So we are convinced that, as you've said, Borreria deserves to integrate different control methods, various, where chemical treatment is one part, where there are also techniques to apply it, either sequential or double strike, where the crop is the main responsible of wanting to be competitive, or a crop that may allow to have low sensitivity to herbicides. In post-emergency, pre-emergency, many of them control it, and therefore it is a strategy that needs further doing. But within the post-emergency controls, we know that according to the combination of products, according to the timing and the double strike technique, we may achieve the delay of reshoots. And within this technique, because we're more interested to have profitable summer crop, the important thing is to have a crop that, by being able to use desiccant, because some of these desiccants, you mentioned various ones, are the ones which can actually have an ephemeral control, but they do have a control that is to do with being able to shade either plants that come from reshoots or seeds, besides the point that biomass that comes from reshoot have a bigger volume, and that's where the producer need to focus is on. Besides from those reshoots being produced, it is a poor competitor when it comes to soy, if the soy plants can also be helped with other desiccants until it shades. So from Cortega, we do not promote the use of these products, which can in turn interfere in the competitive ability of crops, which is what we want, the positive interaction between crops. So all of the products, some of the ones that work properly, have a very restricted selectivity. So when you use arsenal, or some of the mixes that are registered for summer crops are registered under certain conditions of rains specifically, and time lapses. And therefore, following that logic, we cannot cause phytotoxicity to a crop if we want it to help us combat that weed. So our management is based on new technology that we launched a few years ago that does allow us, it is the only way to be able to act effectively, even if the control is ephemeral. It is a good desiccant that works on soy, and therefore to be able to perform in the right timing with all the possibilities that you mentioned in the areas where the hydric balance may allow it. Borreria in some of the areas like Bandera allows the use of a service crop, but Borreria is extended in Chaco, where the hydric regimes do not allow a service crop every year. Some years, yes, some years, no. So therefore, it is crucial if the hydric balance allows you to do a surface crop, you can see that reshoots, once spring begins, we can begin with that. But if we do not have it, we could move forward with this management that allows for the use of herbicide products in selective crops. And that is what we promote from our company. Thank you so much, Daniel. I don't know if there's any other questions. Otherwise, as you think of other questions, when it comes to the tests that you have carried out, Ignacio, I'm going to ask you a couple of things. Does it work or doesn't it? The growth regulators for Borrelia. We have tried pig Pixicocel, which is used on cotton, different doses on their own, mixed with herbicides, and it doesn't work. That's in our experience. We did not have any results. Combining a hormonal with a desiccant, is it good or not? Once again, we see that it is beneficial when we mix a hormonal product within the products that we have always used as hormonal for beef mainly. And it's good to apply it jointly. Best burners to dry off Borrelia, flumoxazine, without any doubt, and anything that contains this substance in its composition, that works great. Maybe there are other products that may have a similar efficacy, but there's no doubt that flumoxazine is the one that works the best on Borrelia. The last one for you. Sorry, may I repeat? Sorry, no microphone.
Mira,
Sumisoja as with HIT, 2 burners, 2 PPO. In our experience, what we see is that the initial drying is more strong when we mix 2 of these elements, always on the basis of flumoxazine. Flumoxazine with ammonium glucosinate, with HIT, or a product that was launched recently, which is an active that is related to flumoxazine, sulfoflunomide. In its strength, reshoot is pretty similar to the general situation, 21 days at best, 24 days, and you will begin to once again get a reshoot. The thing is, the strength when you have weeds such as the one Fran showed when they were a bit more skeletal. Thinking about the double strike strategy close to the sowing with heat so that the shading wins. The question is, what's a third or fourth in ranking of burners? In this ranking, according to our experience, Paraquat is second. Paraquat, as long as we combine 2,4-B, we may even add methrazine in the same treatment, and the effect of the burner is much better. But the reshoot, we're just speaking about this particular substance. The glyphosate in double strike, does it have a benefit? For me, double strike as such, as I showed in the graph of growing doses, we have evaluated all of the hormonal products, different ways to apply it. It doesn't stop this. And The combination, the control, have done within double strike with the desiccant. This, from the moment we apply glyphosate and the drying component, are days that we win. And we don't even suppress the production of biomass properly. I think it's better to do a drying treatment. Perhaps you have other weeds, of course. I'm talking about this particular one. If you have others, then it makes more sense. But if it's only Borrelia, the question is, if I only have Borrelia and I don't have anything else there. Sorry, may I interrupt you? One more question, which was at the back, and then we close. I was asking, when you use service crops, whether it restricts reshoots or the germination as well, or both. What you will observe on the field normally are reshoots of rhizomes. It is very difficult, at least in our environment, the development of plants in summer or spring that comes from seeds. We control them very easily with pre-emergent residual applications, or even afterwards. The plantules can be controlled that way. So you can see the effect when it comes to the growth, but most of it is on reshoots of rhizomes. But we must still continue with the line. It is a year. It is the first experience. We now have, both in Bandera, we're going to try out the same. I know that we don't have any more time. We have one more question. Sorry, I can't hear. No mic. Perhaps the test should be focused on one or the other with regards to the problem that Borrelia has. Once again, what do you consider the problem of, why do you think we cannot control it? Do chemicals not go into the leaf because there is a barrier, a physical barrier, or does the product go in and cannot translocate? To begin with, there is a problem with translocation. And we did a test where we could see the glyphosate that went in, and then it reached various leaves or organs, and it could not be captured again. But it is both. For me, there is something to do with mobility and also with the entry point. But especially with the mobility of active ingredients within the plant. So that's why I believe that suppression or control is easier when the elements go on the root and not the aerial parts. So as Steffi was saying, when we tried some ALS, at the moment we don't have another chemical family that can allow the suppression that we see with this particular family. In humid conditions, they go in mainly through the root, and there you can see a better translocation to the system. And these are the products that we can apply to the foliage. How are we doing for time? There is another question at the back, and then we will close. Glyphosinato with fluoxacin has excellent burning properties. Can you say something about it? We have made that mixture, that combination, with good results, but we don't see later modifications when it comes to reshoots. but we did manage to eliminate some of them. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our speakers.
Que sigan disfrutando del Congreso.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.